Hey, good morning to everyone. Getting into this session here, we'll be getting started in about 1 minute. Just giving some time for the attendee list to fill out here. Um, in the meantime, if anyone has any questions during today's presentation, just use the question menu inside of the GoToWebinar meeting window. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Just to introduce myself, my name is David Nolan. I'm the Senior Applications Engineer for SmartSights, and today our presentation will be on SmartSight solutions in the food and beverage industry. Today we'll be going over food and beverage challenges, and we'll be doing a SmartSights solution overview of our SmartBundle software. We'll also be doing a short hands-on demonstration, and we'll have some time at the end of the presentation for questions. So when we say food and beverage, I think obviously if people are attending this workshop, we probably know what that is. We're just talking about the industries involved in transforming, raw agricultural goods into the consumer food products that we buy in stores. Uh, and the processes and equipment that we're talking about in terms of automation systems can be things like mixers, reactors, fermentation, extruders, ovens, all the different equipment that's used in industrial food and beverage processing. But there's also processes like packing. There's background operations in the facility, right, like power generation and HVAC, sanitation of the equipment, distribution of the products, right, downstream to further industries. So there's a lot of different processes that happen across the industry, and they kind of all come with their own unique challenges. So challenges in the food and beverage industry that we find are related to effectiveness and productivity, right? Factories want to be operating as efficiently as possible with as little waste as possible, as little downtime as possible. And it can be a bit difficult to root out causes of inefficiencies so they can be improved. There's the concept of safety and contamination, which is inherent, right, to food and beverage. These are products people are consuming, they're ingesting into their bodies, so they have to be safe. There's also the concept of quality control, right? It's a process following the recipe. And some of these concepts, right, roll up into regulatory compliance. FDA can audit food and beverage factories, right? They have to be able to prove that if there's an issue with product contamination, right, they have to understand the scope of that and be able to answer that in the government audit. So um, the way that SmartSights approaches solving these kinds of challenges starts with process visibility, right? So we sort of have two different angles of visibility into industrial processes with our software. The first one is remote notifications, and people in the audience may know this as the Win 911 product that taps into in-plant alarm and event systems like Factory Talk or InTouch or iFix, or even directly into controllers and equipment. And it takes the alarm conditions, the process deviation conditions that are happening in these systems, and it intelligently routes them remotely to all the different critical roles that are involved in these industrial processes. So these can be people like maintenance technicians, process engineers, plant management, and so on. And this system is able to intelligently route these alarms to the right people at the right time because it's aware of a lot of information about your workforce. It knows your employees' schedules when they're on and off call. It knows the relationship between them. It knows who to call first and who to escalate to if they don't answer. Uh, and so using these tools can basically sort of make sense of the fire hose of alarm information that's coming out of these processes and direct the notifications to the right people at the right time. The other area of process visibility in our software is automated process reporting. And across industry, typically people are producing process reports sort of to address the challenges we mentioned a moment ago, right? Compliance data, operational quality control. And some examples of this in the food and beverage industry might be something as simple as, production reports, right? Being able to get visibility into the performance of different assets in a plant or production lines in a plant or even plants across an enterprise. Uh, there's the concept of safety, right, and quality control with clean in place, which is common in beverage processes, right? Anytime there's liquid bearing vessels and pipe work that's holding or processing different products. Uh, these vessels had to be cleaned down and sanitized between production runs. And this is information that the government can audit. So these processes do need to be tracked and audited, and we need to ensure that they're being executed within the allowable guidelines. Uh, OEE is something that's common really across all industry, but certainly commonplace in food and beverage. It's basically just a fancy word for figuring out how efficiently and effectively um, a process is running based on information like its uptime and downtime and its production totals and reject rates. Then there's the concept of alarm management, right? Looking at the alarms that are, being monitored by these in-plant systems and extended through our notification tool, doing analysis around the effectiveness of these systems. Are they actually functioning as intended, or are they creating downtime and creating distractions due to things like floods? Uh, so how do these two solutions work? The concept of remote notifications as well as process reporting. So um, from the notification side of things, it basically works by monitoring in-plant alarm systems. Again, your InTouch, your Factory Talk, your Delta V, uh, and it takes the alarms in those systems and it routes them using simple logic like call out lists, right? If an alarm happens, call Bill, and if he doesn't answer, call Bob. There's also advanced logic that can be used to route alarms that can check things like the schedule, the severity of the alarm, how long it's been going on, and target uh, notifications to different people based on those factors. Uh, when we are delivering these notifications, we can do it by four different methods. So think of a voice, a phone call, notifying you that there's an alarm happening. Then I can work over plain old telephone line or VoIP. We work with email, SMS, and then the mobile app, which is what we'll kind of be talking about primarily today. With any of these methods, you can acknowledge alarms back into the in-plant system, so they appear on in-plant HMIs and within the logic of the SCADA system. And you can include reports and data as well. Reports and data are a bit limited with SMS and voice, as you can imagine, but with email and the mobile app, we can deliver some advanced reports that have metrics, analysis, trends, and visualization on them. In terms of process reporting, similar workflow to notifications. Basically, we can connect up to data sources. And again, we support all the major SCADA, HMI, DCS vendors, standards like OPC, OLEDB databases. We can connect to as many of these different sources as is applicable inside of a plant or an industrial operation. Uh, Once we've connected to a data source, we can design templates. We've got dozens of out-of-box reports that you can use. We also support importing existing Excel files, and our design tools run either as a standalone or an Excel add-in. Excel is not required. It's just an option there for those who prefer it. Um, Using these report templates, we can make reports automatically or on demand. Think of running a shift report or an end of day production report. We can react to a batch starting or stopping or an alarm happening and push reports automatically. We can also support on-demand interactive dashboards from a local browser client, local desktop clients around the network, or from our mobile app. We also have the ability to push data to all different kinds of business systems using various means, but that's probably a bit outside the scope of today's discussion. So in food and beverage, what would be the reason to bundle reports and notifications together? We're kind of talking about these two core capabilities, but we also do have some unique functionality that is enabled by bundling these two solutions together. Uh, and so the value that you're getting by bundling reports with remote notifications is the ability to deliver data to people on any device and deliver relevant data to their role. Right, so we're talking about something like a food and beverage plant, or maybe we're producing soft drinks using various processes like blending and pasteurization and so on. The kinds of information that an operator or a maintenance tech would need to know would be things like, when alarms are happening, what they are, maybe some background information about what's happening in the process, so they can use that as a diagnostic tool to solve that alarm or understand the scope of its effect on the process. In that same blending process or that same pasteurization process, there may be people like quality control engineers or external regulatory agencies who may want to audit that process, and they'll need to see a much more detailed view of everything that's happened there, not only just the key trends, but things like alarms and events, operator set point changes, things that affect the execution of the process and its quality. And there are also people like production supervisors or administrators in the control room who may need to see a different view yet again of that same process, where maybe they're not concerned with just one particular production line or area like an operator would be, but they may need to see at a glance information across all the different processes and alarm response efforts that could be going on inside the plant. So by merging notifications and reporting, we can create these really sort of nuanced views of the process that target meaningful information that helps all these different roles perform their duties. So now I think I'll change gears here, and we'll do some quick hands-on, so we can take a look at the SmartSights mobile app. Just give me 1 second to get my mobile screen up here. Okay. So what we're looking at here is my iPhone, and you can see that I've got some notifications from Win911 here on my my dashboard, my lock screen. But I'm going to flip open to the Win911 mobile app here. And so what we can see here is a live feed of alarms coming out of my plant. And in particular to this food and beverage material we're talking about today, we have two alarms going on that are relevant to that process. So we've got, for example, a reactor temperature alarm, right? This is something just representing the temperature inside of a mixing unit, say, that's producing beverages. And we've also got a notification of batch activity when batches are starting and stopping. And so being able to see this information remotely, right, allows people like maintenance techs or operators, right, to not necessarily have to be on shift in the plant right near the assets that they're operating. They could get this notification, say, in the middle of the night if they were on call, right, and then drive into the plant to fix a problem. So we're lifting, the live alarm data out of the process and letting anybody see it. But there's a lot more that we can do inside this app, right, than just receive alarm notifications. So when this system generates notification, it will send it out to a team, right, of one or more people, depending on the configuration. We can actually see on that response team, who has seen this notification that this process alarm is happening, right? I can see that I've seen it, but my colleague Dylan has not actually seen the notification, even though it was, push to his phone, and we can confirm that. When these notifications go out, they also create a group chat in this app among everybody in the response group or in the call out list. So we can notify people of what we're doing to respond to and resolve the alarm. And of course, we can also acknowledge the alarm back into the process, and it will actually, this acknowledgement will go down into the control system in the plant, and people that are viewing, say, local HMI displays and things can see it there. We also have some concepts of user management inside this app. And so I've signed into it as an administrator. So I can see, for example, the connections and notification policies that I have configured. So the connections are basically your contacts, right? So I can go in and edit these contacts, and I can go to, say, to Dylan here, and I can change his roles, right? He's an operator on the day shift in this plant. I can take him off of this schedule, say if he switches to the night shift. So I can manage my users, I can manage their on-call hours, I can manage their roles in the plant with respect to alarm response efforts. And I can also edit the alarm response policies themselves. So for example, we have a policy related to, when discharge water pumps in the plant uh, are failing, and these are a list of technicians, right, who respond to that. And so I can add people and take people off of this list from my mobile phone. I can also change the order of these people so that, say, for example, I'm not always the first one that gets called. I can take maybe Dylan off of this list if he's switched to a different area or a different responsibility in the plant. So you do have the capability to manage your users from the mobile phone anywhere. So you don't have to be in the plant, logged into a SCADA system, say, to access this kind of information. Uh, we can also access reports inside of the mobile app here. And so these reports kind of have maybe two different contexts which they could be used. They can be used for things like just proactive monitoring of the process, right? We can monitor how many process alarms we've experienced, right, over the course of the week from different process areas, so we can see, what the level of, I guess, chaos or deviation is that's going on. We can also use these reports as part of the diagnostic and response effort to an alarm. Say, for example, all these alarms we just saw a moment ago related to these pumps. Right, we can access diagnostic trends around pumps, and we can see, for example, that these things are starting and stopping, more frequently than we expected. They've been off for long periods of time. The flow rate, right, is a lot more volatile than we'd be expecting, and so this kind of information can be used, right, to diagnose alarms or to better understand why an alarm is happening, right? We can understand, for example, if there is a long, downtime event, maybe we want to create an alarm that happens when this volatility starts, right, rather than waiting for the pump to stop and then creating an alarm. So these views give you just basically more understanding of what's happening related to a specific alarm in the process. So now let's kind of take a look under the hood very briefly and just see what some of the tools that we have to put this functionality together actually looks like. So I'm going to switch to my Windows desktop here. And what we're looking at is the Win911 Control Center. So this is sort of the on-prem view we have of live alarm information and supervisory level process view, right? So we can see in this tool live alarms, right? These are the same alarms that we saw on the mobile app a moment ago. We can view and acknowledge these alarms just like we can do on the phone. We can look at historical logs of alarms. We can see a history of what's been happening. We can also look at dashboards. And this is probably the most useful tool, I guess, in terms of getting a high level, brief understanding of everything that's happening in the plant, right? Because this tool shows us things like alarm totals, the amount of activity we have right now, alarms in different states, right? We've got 5 active and unacknowledged alarms across the plant, 1 that has been act, and 9 that have gone inactive before they were ever act. So this gives you a level of understanding of what people are responding to at any given moment. We can also monitor process data in here as well. So we can see, for example, right now in my beverage blending production line, I'm running a batch of orange flavored product that's been going on for about 2 minutes and 30 seconds. It's still active right now. Oh, it looks like it actually just is changing over to another batch as we're speaking here. It's just changed over to a cherry batch. So we can get an idea of what's happening inside the process at a very high level. We can see things like OEE, right, to track our efficiency. And if we double click on one of these reports here, it'll actually launch a detailed view of everything that's happening inside, or everything that has happened inside of that batch, which unfortunately for my demo right now is not much because it literally just started. So we have the ability to consume alarm information and process data here. Underlying these views that we've been looking at are 2 tools, Win911 and Excel Reporter, that are part of the SmartBundle. So we can kind of take a look at that a little bit about how these tools work, probably starting with Win911. So Win911 is the notification side of things, and it works basically by defining a directory of contacts and their roles and schedules, right? These are people that are going to be responding to your alarms. It plugs in their contact information, whether they use the app or we're going to call them on the phone or send them a text message or an email. And then we have the connection to the in-plant alarm sources, right? And so Here, for example, I have a connection by OPC DA to my control system that is running this simulated food and beverage operation. Uh, and inside of this connection, I just have two alarms set up related to the blending process, right? These are the ones we saw on the app. And so I can identify, the tags that are generating alarms, and I can plug in the condition, right, that is going to trigger the notification. And so we've got two different examples here. One of them is just looking at a Boolean value, right? We look at a bit inside the control system that's going high or low, and we can react to that. We can attach a message to it. And then we have a level alarm, right? That's looking at an analog. It's looking at a temperature inside of that reactor. And so when that temperature climbs above 35 degrees, we consider that a high. When it climbs above 36, we consider that a critical high with a higher priority. And so this is sort of the way that the tool monitors these conditions. We can program them by direct tag connection, as I'm doing here. If we're working with a proprietary connector to something like a factory talk A&E system or an iFix or an InTouch, we can actually subscribe to alarms categorically. So we can look at things more in terms of regular expressions rather than tag values. This menu's a little bit slow on the uptake here, so maybe we'll kind of skip over the factory talk the example here. But so we have our contact directory, we have our connection to our alarm sources. Then we just decide how we want them to be able to go out, and that's actually a notification policy. My system seems to be slowing down a bit here. Just trying to get this policy editor open. Here we go. And so we have two sort of kinds of policies, right? One of them is a call out list, which is simply when we get an alarm that meets this criteria, we start notifying people going down the list, and we will retry if it fails. We'll wait. We'll give them a set amount of time to respond to that notification before we go to the next person, and so on. And we just go through this list. And again, we can change the order, add and remove people from this list. And then we can define how it repeats, essentially, right? So if nobody answers this, what do we do next? Do we repeat until the alarm stops, or do we repeat maybe a set number of times, so that kind of thing? We also have the concept of advanced notification policies. And these are the ones that let you use like a flowchart type of logic to be able to define your response to an alarm. Just waiting for this tool to to open up here. We can actually create a new one. So we'll go to a new advanced policy. And the reason I'm taking you down this deep dive into these menus isn't to be a training lesson or anything, but just to kind of understand what the workflow of this tool is like. So we can create a new workflow here. And now we have more of a flow chart like environment where we can say, what's happening, when is this alarm happening, right? Is it happening on a certain schedule, right? If it's happening, in our standard business hours, say weekdays, we can take, one tact. We can notify one person, right? If it's happening at this time, or notify a different person or a list of people, right? If it's happening outside that schedule, we can check things like the severity, how long the alarm has been active, has it been acknowledged? And so we can create a more nuanced response, right, to that alarm. We can also use, this is also the tool that we use to push diagnostic reports. So we can, within these logical conditions, we can, push a report and decide, what report we're going to push, who we're going to push it to, that kind of thing. We're getting close to the end of our time here. I've been a bit more long-winded than I was attending, so I'll kind of change gears here. We talked about notifications, right? Who are they going to be sent to? What's their schedule and contact? What's the alarm data actually coming in from the in-plant system? And how are we going to handle it with a policy? And we have a connection to a gateway, right? Like a mobile gateway or a VoIP server or what have you that actually delivers out that notification. So on the reporting side of things, we kind of have, I have two examples I wanted to sort of briefly touch on here. Um, One of them is the concept, say, of a continuous report like OEE, right? This report is going to point at a process historian, right? So, or a HMI data log, so it has access, to the tag history of the process, and it's looking at things, right, to determine, uh, how much product are we producing inside of that reactor, right? What product has been rejected, right? Which I define by the product that has had a temperature deviation. What's the downtime inside that process look like? These are all tags coming from my SCADA system, and they're basically being put through an analytical engine to detect things like maximums and deltas, and then so we can basically know, what was our total production in the past 24 hours? How much did we waste? How much time were we down? It uses charts and formula logic to turn this into an OEE score, right? And this is the score that we saw inside the app and inside the control center there. Uh, we also have the concept of discrete process monitoring, right? This blending uh, audit report, and we saw some snippets from this inside the control center as well. Uh, this report uses both tag history as well as a live connection to the tag data, right? So it's monitoring, live trigger signals inside of my HMI SCADA system. It will react, right, when the beverage blending process turns on and when it stops, right? We just saw a batch end right here. So it will keep track of the time frame of that batch, right, by monitoring that bit when it goes high, when it goes low, and it will query the process history between these two times to give us an idea of how we performed in that batch. In this example, so here, if we look at the trend line here, we can see where the batch target was. Right, it was a 10. Say a 10 gallon batch, for example, or 10,000 gallon batch. And we can see right the reactor level where this process is outputting. We can see it climbing up, but it never quite actually hits the target, though it did stay very, very near to it for most of the batch. So this is the kind of auditing information, right, that we're talking about in terms of, seeing, one, that the process is, say, within its temperature specification, but also looking at the production data inside the batch, using these analytics to determine, whether or not we were successful, or different areas we can improve on. So we sort of have, two or I guess three different ways that we can generate these process reports. Right? We can do something like monitoring the OEE continuously, and these batch events will contribute to that OEE, right? If we're not producing our total or we're down during the batch, but we have continuous reporting like OEE. We run this around the clock and monitor, at any point in time, what was our OEE over the last 24 hours, or over the last shift. We have a more detailed view of the process, right? Looking at specific batches, and we can also look at things like how many batches we made, in a given day, and things like that. So these are just sort of two really small examples to kind of just serve as a discussion point for how this tool works, within a food and beverage type of application. But going back, to a higher level, and talking about, or speaking to the SmartBundle, just as one kind of closing note here, I hope this presentation sort of served to help the audience kind of understand what our capabilities are, right? Why they're needed, why we can benefit from remote notifications, right? It helps us achieve faster alarm response, great higher uptime, and then the reporting angle of being able to actually track and get visibility into the process data for the purposes of compliance and continuous improvement. And when we combine these two things in the SmartBundle, basically it allows you to see all this information in more places, and tailor it to different people's needs, right? We can see it here on the desktop in a supervisory view. We can see detailed reports, and we can see streamlined reports on our mobile device. So I think we're at about time here. I will stick around and answer any questions if there are any coming in from the audience here for a moment or two. Going once, going twice. If you do want to ask a question, just use the little question mark box menu at the top right of the GoToWebinar window. All right, doesn't look like we have any questions coming in today. So I just want to thank everyone for attending once again, and I hope you all enjoy the rest of your day.